it is.
Aloha, thank you for calling in today.
Oh, I'm so happy to be here with you guys.
We're ecstatic to continue the conversation that started, I believe, almost like a month ago.
Yep.
And we kind of give a very short, brief precursor here, to bring the rest of our listenership out there, up to speed with what Brother Stu, was giving or projecting out to us at the dire necessity for us to pay attention to what we are doing as humanimals before we lose our space on this planet of our mother, and the ramifications of what could happen if we attempt to start even tapping into grandmother.
That's exactly what we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about all the consequences and the necessity of what we need to do to be able to stop this colonization of the moon, because the moon is the beating heart of Mother Earth, and that's what Stuart's going to be talking today about.
Well, aloha.
Aloha, Stuart. Aloha, Stuart.
Aloha to all our sisters and brothers out there.
Yes, mahalo nui loa, as we say here in Hawaii, for you coming on to spreading the word, the important message, the kahea, as they'll say out here, that we need to heed, that our hearts need to resonate with, so that we can create the change that is so necessary for us to continue livelihood on our mother, as well as not for us, but for the unforeseen that are yet still to come.
Yes, exactly. If you don't mind, what we usually do before we get started in anything is we usually do a brief opening, and that's to remind ourselves and to give thanks to our origins, to our creators, where we had come from. So I'll do a brief opening in our language, and then I'll give a brief explanation as to what it is. So, Onakadiwahi Gajoko, so what I'm see you, Snyari. Gazitan's Rio, Ujets Kahawi Nuji, and Dujets Queen is star, Ronataion. Taganu Radu, Garunga Gario Kesu, Yetisota, Asatanka Garako, Dana Yetin is Yistan, Zihonzage, Dana Aguegoskat, Neganungwe. Detinu Rado Yetisota Gunhan, Nerona da Hetstun, Negani Guhri, Radi Hawekwe. I don't care again, Dam Dawe, I don't Hetzel, because it's Tassada, Neganungwe. Okay, in a nutshell, it's a very brief opening, which I just did. It is, of course, you can go deep into any deliberation, but in a nutshell here is we give thanks first to our origins, the very first being within all creation. So we give our thanks to Sky Woman, she who has given us spirit. And then from there we give our thanks to the beating heart, to our grandmother Moon. It is she who gives us blood. And then from there we give thanks to our Mother Earth, the body, she who gives us body. So we see that there are three levels of creation, that there is the spirit, which is female, which is our great mother. And then there is the heart, which is female, which is exactly what takes place within a fetus as it is growing. The first thing, of course, is the act of love between the mother and the father, and the spirit is enacted within that being, within that cell. And then the first thing from the spirit that begins to grow is the heart, because anything, in order for it to grow, it needs blood. So the very first thing that begins to grow is the heart. And so from there, the body grows then once the heart is in the human gestation process. I believe it's maybe about a moon and a half, where the heart stops from pumping just within itself and turns into now pumping external into the body. So we see that these three phases of creation are real phases, because this is what happens to how a fetus grows. There's the spirit, there's the heart, and then there's the body. And so this is also not only something that happens within the human being, it happens to the larger creation. So to identify into the larger creation, we give our thanks then from that stage to all the women, as the women from the newest born baby girl to the eldest grandmother, as they are all mothers of our nations and are to be honored and to be treated with the highest level of respect for that sacred position of life giver. They who bring the life into this world. Just imagine, without that sacred being of mother, that none of us would exist. So she is the most sacred treasure in the universe. So when you know that it takes the universe to create our mother, so the entire universe, its existence is so that mother can bring life into physical reality. And so we honor this process, and we identify from the newest born baby girl to the eldest grandmother, because it is the women that once the process of the spirit is given into us, and then the heart starts pumping into, and then our body starts to grow, then it is the women from the newest born baby girl to our eldest grandmother, which includes our mothers, that gives us direction in this world, that basically transmits to the males the messages that our Mother Earth emit. And of course, it depends on where you live. Where you are in Hawaii, you are receiving different messages from our Mother Earth than what we are over here. We're in Kahnawake territory, which is just Kahnawake is on the south shore of what is known as Montreal, in so-called province of Quebec, in so-called Canada. But this is my territory, and this is, anyways, the messages that are emitted here are much different from the earth that are emitted from within your territory. But regardless, those messages are interpreted to us, to the people, through the women, through our mothers. And that doesn't mean, when we say the mothers, it doesn't mean that you have to be an actual mother, because the newest born baby girl actually fills that role also as mother, those who give us direction. Because in some instances, you know, a man, maybe he's not going to listen to his wife or his girlfriend, and maybe he's not going to listen to the reasoning of his mother, and maybe he's not going to listen to his grandmother. But then you take his little baby girl or his granddaughter and put her on his lap. Then he will listen to her in a way that cannot be communicated from any of the others. So in that sense, truly, the newest born baby girl to the eldest grandmother really makes up the reality of the collective mother identity of the women, of the people, in particular, in whatever particular area that you live in. So each of those women will pick up the messages of our Mother Earth, and again, it could be a little baby girl. You have to observe her, and of course, when you are within matrilineal society, and the mothers are in control to manage the people, not to control or to govern, but to manage the people, then you'll have the mothers able to detect when there is a message being conveyed through, say, if it's through a child, where in today's society, you might, a child that might receive a message will just be not even listened to, you know, would be not encouraged, but actually discouraged from the message that she would be conveying. But only in a matrilineal society, a natural society, where the people grown from the earth in the natural way, the language grows from the earth, their knowledge grows from the earth, so they are intrinsic to what is happening in that part of the earth, knowing, like, if you were, say, if you positioned yourself as a cell in the body of being in the knee, you're in the left knee of the body. Well, then the nerve endings there in the left knee would have complete knowledge of what's happening in that area, in the area of the left knee. But now, on the contrary, imagine now, if the nerve endings of the cells in the knee, if they were not doing their job, if they were not paying attention, if they were off pursuing their own personal happiness and their own personal growth or whatever outside of the collective knowledge of the people, then those people would actually be going in the contrary direction of creation. They would actually be, without them realizing it, be harming creation. Which is at the stage where, of course, where all people are at right now on the planet. When we consider 7 billion people on the planet all doing the exact same thing, destroying our Mother Earth, how did we get to this level of collective action? Did the people in each nation, did they get together and say, okay, this is going to be our conduct? And then did they talk to other nations to agree that, hey, yeah, this is going to be our conduct? How did we get to this stage?
Representative Stuart, we have to take a station break real quick.
Okay.
I'm sorry, we're going to have a few of these throughout the show, but if you could just hold that thought, how we got here, when everybody's acting the way we are, and we'll come back in just a moment.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Mahalo.
Maybe we should announce that we're on Facebook Live, right?
Sure.
And don't forget to mention about Elise, because as you were talking, for me it's like we need to listen to our youth and we are not listening to them. And the example is like what happened in Florida. The kids want to do something and they won't like listen to them. But I mean, this is totally related to what happened to our friend Elise, an Indian woman. Anyways, she just lost a nephew that killed himself.
No, with the shooting in Florida?
No, it's Innu territory, just here.
Really?
In
Setil.
Whoa.
So, what was it, like 2 or 3 years ago, that we went to our community?
So there's a commercial, so we'll be back. Stay tuned, guys. Thank you for watching. Hi, Jenna. Diane.
KKCR, Kahnawake. You're listening to Out of the Box, and we have Representative Stuart Myiow from the Wolf clan of the Mohawk Nation, sharing his knowledge on laws of peace and Matrilineal Authority, and we'll be going into the moon teachings of his people. But you were just talking about how everybody in the world, Stuart, is acting in a manner that's not really healthy for the earth. So if you could continue, that'd be great.
Yeah, okay, this is, of course, we find ourselves in the middle of this behavior that has been handed down to us. If we think deeply about the circumstances, we will, of course, discover what the truth is that, well, none of us in this current generation created these circumstances. Where did it come from then? Well, it was handed down to us from our mothers and fathers. But would our mothers and fathers hand down to us such terrible conditions? Because our mothers and fathers supposedly love us. But then when we look at, well, yes, they did in fact hand this down to us, but their mothers and fathers handed it down to them also. So we see that this, where we are at, we're not at the end result yet. Every generation is at the current end result. But what we are leaving for the future generations, the faces that are yet beneath the earth, we are, again, literally to put food in our mouths today to feed our children. We're literally taking the food out of the faces beneath the earth, out of their mouths. We are preventing our future generations from being able to eat through our conduct today of which ultimately leads into overpopulation. And so in overpopulation, to feed all the people that we have, we're literally stealing the food out of the faces that are yet beneath the earth, out of their mouths. So this is, of course, we can see when we examine it truthfully, it's a corrupt behavior. So we see then that we are within a long chain, a multi-generational chain of corruption. So we have to identify what is the corruption. when we think about, again, that 7 billion people on the planet are conducting themselves all in the same way, it's a behavior. To conduct yourself in a behavior, it is something that, because we're humans, that we have to think about. We have to go through a thought process to be cognizant of what we are doing. And so then we are talking about then ultimately as to what we do collectively. We are talking about our collective thinking process. So it's how we think collectively which is wrong, which is what we, in the non-native world, which has been handed down generation to generation, but every generation says the exact same thing, that they want change. Now think of this. Every generation, say in the non-native society, in democracy, they vote. 8 years ago there was somebody there, and or 4 years ago somebody was there, and then now they're saying they want change. So what it means is that you want something that is never what's the term here? I'm at a loss for words here. You want true democracy. It's not that you want, but the practice of democracy itself promotes the change to where you have somebody that fills the position that actually never knows what they're talking about. It's somebody within positions of power who are not guided by wisdom. They're not guided by knowledge. They're just guided by their desire for change. And when you consider that democracy is powered by the youth, by the young people, this is what powers democracy. Because you're 18 years old, you know, everybody knows that that demographic is what changes the outcome of any elections. So anyways, we know that they're they're preying upon the young people, that when they're 18 years old, oh, they can vote, but what do they know? They don't know enough. They don't have enough wisdom. And in the world of democracy, they're misguided out of wisdom, so they're not guided by the wisdom of their elders. They're misguided by it, and the one thing that guides everybody's decision today is, of course, nothing to do with our thinking process. It has nothing to do with our governance or our political process. It has to do with money. As you were talking about earlier, I didn't catch everything you were saying, but say of just the plastics in the world. What country decided that, hey, we're going to fill the world with plastics? And what country, again, talked to another country and said, hey, let's do this? Nobody did. You know how this spread amongst the people? It spread, it was protected through the insanity of democracy, but guided and controlled by capitalism. So what the people are thinking today, that they are the political system, they're thinking it's democracy. But that's not true. The system that the people are under the control of is it's basically a pirate regime of democapitalism, which is democracy protecting capitalism. It's capitalism that is deciding absolutely everything that 7 billion people will do on this planet. So it doesn't matter if you're in a communist country, or if you're in a so-called democratic country, or in a socialist or whatever country. It doesn't matter. Any country can say they have their own political agenda. That does not matter in this world. What matters now in this world of one world economy, of World Bank, of World Monetary Fund, of the United Nations, what matters in this world and what guides this world is, again, only the monetary. So any political system, it doesn't matter what the political regime says or whatever, they still will pollute this world with plastic, which means that every decision is guided by capitalism. So once we narrow this down into how humans have become subdued, What are the actual mechanisms? Then we got to look at, okay, it's fine to identify this, but what are the actual steps to undo this? Now, when we look at or we consider that the what is happening to our Mother Earth right now, what is being exported from our Mother Earth to our grandmother Moon now, is the destruction is again, of course, a result of capitalism, of democapitalism, of it's like a machine, a big monster that tears apart our Mother Earth, that digs up anything, rips anything that's alive, rips it apart and commodifies it, breaks it down into really useless structures after that, where it's energy that is no longer conveyable in creation. It's energy that is just boom. It's burnt up after that. So we are doing a process of which is actually again cancer in the body. We are basically the human practice in this world that the non-native has brought here to Turtle Island and to all original peoples of the world is that of cancer. So when we realize that we are looking at a cancer cell and how cancer spreads in the body, we can look at cancer and think that we understand it because we're looking at it from our perspective. We think that cancer means, from our perspective, the diminishment of our body, the diminishment of our life. But to the cancer cell, it's expansionism. It's expanding. So it doesn't see things the way that we see it. It doesn't see it as, well, it's eating up all the healthy cells and the body's going to die. It sees it as though it is expanding. So it sees it as a good thing. The process of colonization to those that would colonize is actually seen as a good thing. I think we talked about this the last time. If we go to the day before 1492, the day before all the non-native people left from Europe or wherever they left from to come here, that what it looked like to them, colonization, it looked like hope. It looked like there was promise of freedom, because the reality of to be in a process of colonization means that you're in a process of being controlled in the first place. And to be in that, it has to be terrible, horrific conditions. And this is the reasons why the people from Europe were fleeing their conditions. And this is the reason why coming here to our land seemed like really like their only hope for life, their only hope for existence. So when we see that expansionism of the cancer, whenever it is about to expand, that there are mechanisms that take place on the molecular level in our bodies, like cancer is getting ready to expand, of course, things are happening on a molecular level. So the same thing, when something is happening to our Mother Earth, the molecular level is detectable to us, because on our Mother Earth, we are that molecular level. So we see expansionism happening right now from the democapitalism, the conduct, the crazy conduct of the schizophrenic mentality of democracy, that we see this expanding right now to our grandmother Moon. This is something that if you're hearing me say this and you never heard anything about it, you may think that I'm crazy. You may think that, well, come on, I'm making up stuff. What are you talking about? Our grandmother Moon. What we're identifying right now is that the powers that be in this world, meaning the United Nations, which means every country on this planet, all has their entire governmental machination, all their energy behind a policy, a program of expanding the industrialization, commercialization, militarization to our grandmother Moon. This is a current policy. It is something that in the United States, that when Obama was in 2016, Obama was the one to actually sign into a bill allowing and permitting private corporations to actually, for a time span of 5 years, up until 2022, from 2017 till 2022, signed a bill that if any corporation in their expansion, excuse me, in their expansion upon our grandmother moon, that they are free of any legal litigation against them, meaning that they are basically free of if they break any laws, they're above the law. And this is because right now the commercialization, basically the engine room of the world's economy, the casino protocols of the stock market, is demanding expansion. Now, people may not be aware of this. It's not under political agendas. But to the world of commodification, to the world of money, it is on the agenda. Because money can never stay at the same rate. It has to constantly expand. Because that's how money works. To stay of value, it has to be constantly increasing in value. Anything that stays at the same value is actually decreasing. So the world of money and the casino protocols of the S&P and the TSE, the Toronto Stock Exchange, the stock exchanges around the world are demanding this expansion right now. And what you do not know, what the people of this world don't know, because their political bodies do not, the political bodies of this world are for dummies. It's to keep the people dumb. So, but what you don't know right now is that right now, some people may be aware that there's a group of billionaires right now. There's a gang of them, a gang of billionaires who are all part and parcel of the space industry, who are grouping together their billions of dollars, which will become trillions of dollars. And of course, they don't put their monies in their own name. It goes into a fund. So that means that people around the world will be able to buy into their funds. And that means people around the world will see these billionaires getting into this gang, that their economic endeavors are always going to pay off 1,000%. Everybody in the world is going to back it up. And what this means, everybody in the world is actually backing up the colonization, the militarization, the industrialization of our grandmother moon. And the main product right now, as you mentioned earlier, is in fact helium-3. Now, right now, it is all speculation, because the current technology that science identifies right now, that they do not have the current technology to actually utilize this helium-3 in a efficient manner. They're on the verge of it, and they're banking all of this speculation money from these hedge funds that are going to be formed from this billionaires gang. They're going on speculation that they will be able to build the mechanism by the time they're actually mining this product. But it doesn't matter if they mine helium-3 itself off of the moon, because what it is it's basically like a gas that is locked within the lunar rock, and what they have to do is they have to squeeze it out of there. You know, so it's a matter of, let's say if you have a rock in your hand the size of a bowling ball, well then maybe you're going to get maybe a gram or an ounce or less than an ounce of the product from that. So you have to have a lot of the moon destroyed to get that product. But outside of that helium-3, when you hear of Elon Musk identifying that he wants to be on Mars by 2022, then you got to think of this. Where is he getting his spaceship from to go to Mars? Because now that he is part of this gang of billionaires that are conglomerating their funds, you know that he and this gang of billionaires are going to have the resources at their fingertips to be able to invest all of their monies, all their resources to carrying out that goal of getting to Mars. So yeah, go to Mars. It's not the moon, but to get to Mars, where did he get the materials for their spaceship? Where did he get the fuel for their spaceship? Of course, it comes from our grandmother moon. Now you can say, well, it ain't going to be that much. It's only one spaceship. It's only a little bit of fuel to get them to Mars. Well, yeah, well, it's that one little bit just for them. And it's kind of like when we watched the non-native people trickling in here to our land. And hey, look at that. One non-native person, a white person. Wow, that was like seeing something out of this world. But then, hey, look, there's another one, and then another one, and another one, another one, until all of a sudden they're everywhere, and it just spreads so much that the destruction of absolutely everything lies in its wake. And this is where we are now, to the point of where we are conscious. We are conscious of this fact that there is seemingly some entity that is manifests itself in the form of money into whatever mechanisms that money creates, that this entity that apparently is out to destroy creation is doing this through our economic system. And our economic system is protected through what people think is their political system of democracy, which is your collective way of thinking. So what we find is that the collective way of thinking, democracy, protecting capitalism, is what is wrong with the people, is what locks the people into having no choice but to make plastic and pollute the oceans and pollute our Mother Earth and just keep destroying and destroying. And once there's no more plastics to make here, then again, the economic system demands its expansion. So we are in this phase of where this is expanding to our grandmother moon. And people do not know any longer what our grandmother moon actually is. All original peoples at one time, of course, everybody used to live by the natural cycles within creation. Of course, the number one thing that we lived by was by the daylight. And of course, the daylight, well, today everybody calls it the sun, but most original peoples have identified it in a different way. For us, it is our eldest brother, the sun. And the eldest brother in any house is the one that gets up the earliest and goes out and gets the firewood and makes the fire to keep the people warm in the house so that the younger children won't freeze. Anyways, more and more on and on about that stuff. But that takes away the knowledge. I mean, when people move away from that, the knowledge that is so... Hello?
Hello, are you there?
Yeah.
Stuart?
Yeah.
Okay. Something happened. We lost you for a moment.
Okay.
Okay, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay. I don't know where you lost us, but I'll see where we can pick up here. So basically...
The eldest son and getting the firewood and the sun and how native peoples...
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, so most of the original peoples have references to these bodies in space that have direct effect on us. Everybody always had a reference to the moon as a female, as our grandmother, or some maybe mother, but regardless, always identified as a female. But in this world of democracy, in this crazy world of male dominance, it's got everybody believing that the moon is male through simple fairy tales like the man in the moon. Whereas if you tell your children stories, you tell them lies of the tooth fairy, then your children are going to grow up knowing those lies, and they're going to grow up teaching their children those lies. So fairy tales are very dangerous to actually the continuum of knowledge over generations. Fairy tales actually distort what the truth is within creation. So you put something there, a fairy tale in the minds of the children, excuse me, and you call it the man in the moon. And you even make movies and you show a male's face in the moon and you put a rocket in his eye. So it just becomes embedded in the collective human psyche that the moon is male. And, you know, after a while we just start to think that. And that, of course, as we drift away from the natural cycles, then we forget more as to what our grandmother moon actually is to us. When everyone on earth used to function under those cycles, when at one time you planted or you fished or you hunted or something according to the cycle of the moon. And that meant it kept every human into the rhythm of not just the rhythm of the moon, but the rhythm of the moon in relation to our Mother Earth in wherever you were. So right now, where you are in Hawaii, to all our sisters and brothers, I don't know if it's dark there yet. Here it's dark. We're looking at the moon tonight. We might go out and do something in relation to the land, maybe hunting or something. You might go out and go fishing, do something else. So regardless, our grandmother moon affects us directly in those ways when we're living naturally, but when we're not, then we have the faults, the light pollution that's all around us takes away even our knowledge that the moon is even there, because now we're driving in the city and we can't even tell that the moon is there because it's like faded out in the light of everything else, of the brightness of the city. So we lose complete knowledge of that our grandmother moon has direct effect on us every second of the day. Not only because, as you know, in Hawaii, because of the tides, of course, she affects and she regulates the tides on our entire Mother Earth. She regulates the flow of the rivers. She has the pull on the water so much that even here in so-called North America, in Turtle Island, what is known as the Great Lakes, that when there is a full moon, that there is such gravitational force from the moon that the Great Lakes bulge in the center. And everybody knows that anywhere, any coastal communities know that the moon causes the ocean to bulge. So that tells us that every second of the day, our grandmother moon has such great effect on us. And the number one thing is affecting the waters. And so when we look at our bodies, we know that our bodies are approximately like the same water content. Modern science claims is as...
Representative Stuart?
Yeah.
We need to do some radio stuff. Go ahead and if you could...
Okay.
You can, let's take care of that and we'll get right back to you.
Okay.
Mahalo.
Stuart Myiow, moon teachings. And Stuart, you were just talking about the effect the moon had on water and our bodies being mostly made up of water.
Yeah, as modern science identifies today that the Earth is approximately 74% water. And they say the same thing about the human body, 74% water. But then they actually say about the brain, I think it's 90% water, something like that. But the reality is that we are 100% water, because all physical matter is made from water. When we look at the creation process, to understand it, all we have to do is look at our mothers. And then we know that what takes place within our mothers, the creation process, is within the amniotic waters, the sacred waters of creation, which our mothers carry. And this is from that water which all things are formed, all things are made. We are made from this. Imagine something as complex of our brain permitting us to communicate right now in the fashion that we are. being created out of water, out of the water of our mothers. Now this, of course, there is a great sacredness to this that cannot be understood through modern science. It can only be understood through the of the original peoples. And because it's that traditional knowledge that is passed down through the oldest form of communication from the very instance of creation, that oldest form of communication being our actual DNA, what is encoded within us. Why is it that each of us have arms and legs when our mothers and fathers before us had arms and legs? Because it was communicated to us by our mothers and fathers to say, hey, look, this is how we are. You're like this. This is how humans are formed. So since the beginning of time, there has been the knowledge of how this has been passed down. It is in the fiber of our being, but it has been also passed down verbally through all the original peoples. And with us, within the Banyangahaga, what has been passed down about our grandmother moon is, of course, again, a quick summation here, is that creation begins with the spark of life, the act of love. That is female. That is our mother. That act of love is the spirit. It's what sparks life into anything. Like our mothers is gonna... we'll see our mother's face first thing in the morning and she'll smile at us. That's the spark for us for the rest of the day. You know, to see her beautiful smile and then for her to tell us whatever her wishes are for that day. And then the males, of course, as being the life protectors, we are to be not only to beautify, but to protect, but to beautify all that is creation, meaning all that is female. So the males are then enacted by our basically something as simple as our mother's smile. And our mother's smile will communicate to us, well, what is it that made our mother smile at us when we were a little boy? Did she have to tell us? Or was it when we just realized that when we gave her a flower that, well, she responded one way, but then when we cleaned our room, she responded in a different way. So we learned how to read the messages from our mothers. It was conveyed to us from generation to generation, the knowledge of these things, of how humans have evolved, how we have grown out of from different strains of creation, to the point of where today I know myself of how and where I am directly connected to the strain of the wolf clan, and others within our nations directly to the bear and to the turtle clan. Each of these clans carrying with them, of course, significance and power into the people, significance in as far as the management of the people. And the management of the people brings about a balance and a harmony. And when there's a balance and a harmony amongst the people, then, of course, you have peace. But to get to peace is a long, delicate process of matrilineal authority, of realizing, of males realizing in this world that the first step to creation is not what we have been, the lie that we have been told, that male is first. Of course, that's a lie. And we know that today because we just got to look at, well, where did we come from? We're all born from our mother. So any genius can trace that back all the way back to the first entity that brought life into this world, and you'll discover that that first entity was female, because if it gave birth, it was a mother. So males must acknowledge the truth, the fact of that the female is the primary in creation. And when males get this into their head and understand that we are the secondary, then that means that just like when you're walking, the first step that you take is going to lead your second step. Your second step is not going to lead your first step. So the men of this world have to realize that we must be led, because men of this world, the male dominance, has had over 2,000 years at bat and has proven to be only destructive and harmful to all creation. So it is time for us to, the original peoples, for us to get back to our original identity of our mothers being the authority. This is matrilineal law, matrilineal authority, where our mothers manage the people, not where it is that, well, if the mothers of the community say something to you and you're going to say, well, no, I don't have to listen to that. I can vote 4 years from now. I got power over you. No, we have to get back to the natural wisdom of our elders, because in this world of democracy, again, what is powering it, what is leading it, is capitalism. But when we have our mothers managing the people, we are not going to have capitalism determining what the people are going to do. Basically, what matrilineal authority does is establishes authority within the people who live within that territory. And they have authority of the natural law of creation, which is manifested through our mothers managing the people. Then in that territory, take for instance, if you live where there's uranium, then our mothers would say, no uranium mining. Or else maybe, you never know, maybe our mothers would say, yeah, let's do uranium mining. But you know what? Right now, it is under male dominance, and is something that is rammed down the throat of absolutely every person on this planet, meaning that it's rammed down the throats of our mothers, meaning that our mothers are not happy. Our mothers cannot be at peace, which means that when the women are pregnant in this world and they are not happy, they are not at peace, they are building children that are going to come into this world, that are going to be subject to things such as depression, such as mental illness, such as, you can say, lack of spirituality, lack of wisdom. Basically, when you have a constant state of war that the people are subjected to, then when women are having babies, when they are pregnant, those are war babies. They are not regular humans. Now, when all you got to do is look at, well, what is populating the world right now is what they call the baby boomers. And baby boomers came out of World War II. And that was basically everybody who was baby boomers are war babies. They are bred out of war. And what you think, you would think that war would actually mean a diminishment of the population. Because war, you're killing people. But that's not how cancer works. Again, you have to look at from the perspective of the cancer. You can't look at it from your perspective. So from the perspective of the cancer, as it kills one cell, to us, it's killing a cell. To the cancer, no. It's in expansionism. It is expanding. It is a good thing because there's more of the cancer cells. So they within the cancer cells, it becomes something that is something that you don't even have to think about. It's just something that you do automatically, like what was said right now about why is there so much plastic in the world? Not because any government thinks about it or talks about it. It's because capitalism decided that there must be more and more and more plastics. It's not anything else that has decided this. So it's the money markets. So just like that, that something else decides your fate for you. That within the people right now, something else is deciding our fate for us without realizing what our fate is actually. what is actually on the table right now that is being sold right out from under our feet? What's on the table? Now, nobody is aware of this because in Hawaii and here in my territory, they're doing things that get us angry and that get us wants to do something about what they're doing. They're poisoning the ocean. They're poisoning the rivers. They're cutting down the trees. They're doing this. They're doing that. And of course, that's going to make us angry. And so we're going to go out and protest. And we're even going to get into altercations with them. We're going to get thrown in jail. Some of us, some of our sisters and brothers in countries like Mexico or Guatemala or Honduras or other places, they'll get killed. You know, for us, what we do, we got the luxury of standing there in the street with a protest sign. And yeah, we go home at night and we'll see our loved ones. But in other countries, you do that and they're getting killed. But this is the agenda of male dominance. When you know and understand that the agenda of male dominance, again, is to kill, to destroy all that is female, meaning all creation. When you know that is the agenda, then we look at what's happening to the body. Now imagine, our Mother Earth, for us within the Kahnawake Traditional Council, we declared at the spring equinox 2009 that the health of our Mother Earth had now reached emergency status, and that you, whoever you are listening, you do not have time. As of that time, you do not have time to go back to school, to go back to work, to go on vacation. You do not have time for business as usual. Every, excuse me, every bit of your energy, every second of the day has to go to protecting and bringing our Mother Earth back to life. She is basically, since that time, 2009, in the hospital emergency room, dying without anyone attending to her. So, what we said, what happened to us in 2009, is that myself in our longhouse, I had stopped all our ceremonies. For 1 year we stopped, and I says, there's no point in continuing our ceremonies. I am not going to give thanks for a tree inside of our building where we're giving thanks when right outside they're cutting down the trees. That would be hypocritical of us to give thanks to that tree when we know that they're cutting down the trees. We still there?
No.
Would that be an insult if I go to lay down?
Huh?
Would that be an insult if I go to lay down? I'm really down.
Okay.
I feel like it's more of an insult that I'm falling asleep in front of everybody that is watching.
Radiation.
Aloha. I think we've been cut off.
Yeah, you know, we were just talking about how the powers that be probably playing with us here right now.
Oh, really?
But, yeah, but anyway, no, not just here, but I'm just in general.
Yeah.
But we'll bring it right back up. Hold on.
Wonderful. Mahalo.
Next one, and needs to be addressed, and getting people to actually get back.
It's here, it's equally convoluted, but the situation of
Yeah. Okay. I don't know where we got cut off, but we'll try to get back where we were. What we were.
Representative Stuart?
Okay.
We're on. Yeah. Okay. I think what we were talking about is how in each of our territories that there is something happening to the environment that, of course, is going to get us angry, and we're going to go out and protest about it. Now, if you think about that body of our Mother Earth being in the emergency room, being there, and think of like somebody poking her with a needle in her arm. And we will go to that place where they're poking her and we'll say, hey, stop poking her. And we'll focus all of our attention, and we'll get so angry that we will have fights in the street that they're poking her in the arm. But the reality is right in front of our faces that they are doing something far more sinister than just simply poking her body with needles. They are actually killing the heart of the body. They are sticking a knife right into the heart. So why would we focus, knowing that our mother's body is there, dying, being killed, and we know that a knife they're sticking it into her heart? Why would we be dumb enough to focus on what they're doing, sticking a needle into her finger, cutting a piece of her flesh off of her knee? Why would we focus on that they're breaking her toe when they're sticking a knife in her heart? This is the trick of male dominance. It's the dream spell, where, of course, to be in democracy it puts anybody, of course, who participates in it into a self-inflicted state of schizophrenia. There is no natural people on this earth that ever dysfunctioned under democracy. Democracy is a male-dominant creation where they have this concept of one person, one vote. Imagine in countries like that, you have the chaos of what is currently in the United States, which is currently in all so-called first world countries, the highest rate of mental illness in these countries because of their collective way of thinking. And that gets extrapolated onto the people, that if everybody collectively says we're going to war, then everybody, all the children are all subjected to that. And that's this, through this process, this is how the mental illness is inflicted upon the people. Because the people are not designed to be the destroyers of creation that capitalism has people locked into. So we find then that our collective thinking process of democracy, of the way that we think, that this is, again, it is wrong. So when we look at the river that they're polluting in Hawaii, or the ocean that they're polluting, and the river that they're polluting here, that's democracy doing that, and it wants us to focus on that. It wants us, through democracy, it is self-inflicted upon us, which is identified as cognitive dissonance, where we are aware of the wrong that we are doing, but because we have like an established structure to justify our actions, an established structure of democracy, justifying our actions, we then carry out the actions that we know are wrong. And so we inflict ourselves with cognitive dissonance, where we are inflicting a state of psychosis upon ourselves, the individual, and all the individuals in democracy does this. So you have basically a country of people that are all in a state of psychosis without anybody ever realizing that they are in one or how the hell they even got into it. So when we're dealing with this, and we know that the purpose is to keep the dream spell, is to keep the people focused on nonsense. Because basically that's what it is. Again, if we're going to focus on, oh, look, they're breaking her finger, and we're there and we're getting into fights to protect her finger, but they're putting a knife in her heart at the same time, that's the success of the dream spell of male dominance. So what we have to focus on, what we have to discover, is that there is even an assault on the heart of our mother, that there is a knife going into her heart. What we have to do is we have to bring back the traditional knowledge of the original peoples that will identify that our grandmother moon, that teaches our grandmother moon, is indeed the beating heart of our Mother Earth. Now, this right now, anybody hearing that, they'll say, hey, that sounds like a good story, that's a good myth. You know, that's anybody can say that, and that might be in your culture. Yeah, that's fine. But again, don't forget that this knowledge was handed down from generation to generation. It's a knowledge of basically of how we were created, how we were put together. A library of knowledge is stored within each human of how we were put together. So just like imagine a murder scene. Well, you were not there. Nobody's there at a murder scene. Nobody's dumb enough to murder somebody in front of everybody. So if you're not present at a murder scene, Yeah, well, it doesn't mean that you cannot discover who committed the murder. What you do is you have somebody goes there and investigates. And through investigating, it's very easy to determine, to put one and one together and to extrapolate what the facts are as to how things came about. So we can easily, anyone today in the non-native world could easily dispel what we say about our grandmother moon being the beating heart of our mother earth. They can easily do that, but when we identify that we can utilize today's modern day science, which is male dominant, rooted in male dominance, that we can utilize today's science to establish, to substantiate the claims of our grandmother moon being the beating heart of our mother earth. And so this is where we say then what this teaching will elevate the people's knowledge of our grandmother moon back to the levels where everybody on the planet used to have this knowledge. Where, say, about in the non-native world, a couple of thousand years ago, in the native world here, it's just within 100, 150 years that this knowledge is gone. So we have to bring back something from the past to be able to move into the future. Because the current behavior right now, again, of the 7 billion people, is preventing us as a species, as a life cycle, preventing us from continuing. Our behavior is stopping this. So again, this is where we identify that we have to be like doctors, like troubleshooters. Our mother's on the emergency room table and she's dying and there's no one attending to her. What do? Do we just stand there? Do we twiddle our thumbs? Do we wait for the doctors to come who will never come? Do we wait for somebody else? No, we must take action. So there is something that we from the Kahnawake Traditional Council, an action that we are going to be doing in April. And we want people in Hawaii, our sisters and brothers, we want people around the world to participate. What this action is going to be is official conveyance of information in the form of the Mohawk Moon Teaching Sharing Circle, where we are going to share the information of the knowledge of the moon, where you hear me saying, grandmother moon is the beating heart of our mother earth. Okay, well, it is explained and it is, again, substantiated through modern science, that it is not just a story or a belief, that modern science affirms that the moon is the beating heart of our mother earth. But anyways, we will do this in the month of April. It's going to be a worldwide thing. It's going to be, of course, over the internet, where we're going to convey this information, and you will have to officially receive the information, which means that, well, you know, like right now I'm telling you a story, you'll turn the radio off and you'll forget about it. What with this official conveyance of information is how we fight against this male-dominant world that has created a world of fake news, of false information. Male dominance has made the communication between people so distorted that we cannot trust communication amongst each other anymore. So we, in our attempt to reverse this, will do this process that at the same time will show how matrilineal brings truth, a level of knowledge amongst the people that cannot be distorted. And so this process the people will have to receive it, and that means they will have to respond to it. There will be one part at the, I think it's the new moon,
on the 15th
and then
of
the full
April.
moon.
and the 29th.
The 15th and the 29th of April. It goes in conjunction with the moons anyways, but as we go on further, there'll be more info about this. So it will be conveyed the first part, and then 14 days later on the moon, the next cycle of the moon, the people will have to respond, meaning they will have to state that, well, yes, we affirm this information, or we denounce the information based on whatever science, you know. It can't be just because you disagree. No, that is the world of male dominance. This is how rumors and the corruption in democracy is there, where you have, of course, the total and complete disrespect, because, again, there is no way of having truth amongst them. So we will bring this process of truth back to the people, and we will utilize it to bring the information of our grandmother moon, which again the people will have to respond to, but also the information of what is currently happening in the furthest developments in the industrialization, commercialization, and in militarization of our grandmother moon. So people will have to respond to yes or no, that the moon is the beating heart of our Mother Earth, and yes or no, that they acknowledge that this militarization, industrialization is taking place. And then from there, we are presenting to the world that what we must do is every person on this planet must push the United Nations to declare the moon to be a World Heritage Site in order to protect her. Now, again, I know that right now anybody hearing this for the first time might think that this is crazy, this is out of this world. Why would we be talking about this? There's things here in this world that we have to address. Again, if a person does not believe in this information about what is happening to the moon, all you have to do is look up yourself in the mainstream media, the information that is already there in the European Union, especially because they are one of the strongest push behind this development of the moon. There is international lunar base that is being pushed more from the European Union. So anybody can find out this information very easy. So if you don't believe in the Ganyanga Haga version of what our grandmother moon is, that she's the beating heart, if you don't believe in that, fine. But just look at then the reality of the plans for development. Never mind militarization, never mind industrialization, just look at development of our grandmother moon. And then,
Stuart,
yep.
We're going to have to take a break here. It's going to be a little long, but it's going to be about 8 minutes, and then we'll be back.
Okay.
So it's very interesting what Stuart is talking about, and that I just read that article. Their theory, I guess the standing theory, is that at some point, billions of years ago, a planet hit Earth and the moon cracked off, but these guys were saying that they got a theory that in the impact, I think something was released, or there was a chaotic event, and in that chaotic event, the molten, which might have been part of the Earth, I guess the core of the Earth at some point, was orbiting around the Earth until it solidified, and that's what ended up that was the moon. Just a theory.
About identity crisis. That yeah, we acknowledge that in the world there is an identity crisis worldwide in every nation and every people. We had put out document identifying this a couple of years ago and identifying how to get out of the identity crisis. Now, we have a lot of different politically correct beliefs that dictate to us today as to what our identity actually is. Where today we have so many things, you know, like say, like for instance, gender identification centers that our teenagers can go into and begin their process of having sex changes and things of that nature, where the parents don't have any control or any ability to say anything of those things. That is, in effect, an identity crisis. But again, for humans, because of all these politically correct things such as that and others, we have a very hard time to determine what is our identity, and then therefore to identify what is an identity crisis. So, to make it simple for anybody to understand identity crisis, think of a forest or a garden, anything natural. You know, if you got a garden, I'll think of my garden with the corn and the beans and the squash in there. Now think of them, they're all doing their thing. You're looking at a forest, every tree is doing its thing, every animal has its thing to do. Now imagine in there an identity crisis. Well, that would mean that the trees are no longer acting like trees. They're not conducting themselves like trees, and so on and so on. So then it's easy to understand what identity crisis means, is that we're basically not acting like humans. Now, when we get into the individual identity, that's where we get into the areas of, well, like we said, you've got things like gender identification centers that are confusing the identities of the people, manipulating the identities of the people. So, but when you stay on the collective level, then you know what the identity of the people are. And that identity, again, is an identity that's passed down generation to generation. It is an age-old knowledge that connects us to something that you said before the break. You were identifying about some research that you did about the moon, that they're finding the parts of the earth has the moon in it, but they're not finding parts of the earth in the moon. Now NASA identifies this also, and anybody can do their research on this. You know, it's not something I'm making up, but I'll say, don't believe me. Prove this to be wrong, what I am saying. NASA identifies that our grandmother moon has a one planet parent, where the Earth and other planets have many parents, multiple parents. You will find parts of Jupiter in the Earth, you'll find parts of Saturn in this and in that, but in the moon, you only find one thing. And how science looks at it is like what you said, at some point in time, they claim that while a meteor hit the moon, part of the moon broke off, and or part of the Earth broke off and formed the moon. If that was the case, then you would find multiple parents to the moon. But the fact is that there's only one. NASA claims one parent. It's because they're looking at it backwards. Just like when you know the gestation process of a fetus. Again, it's the heart that begins to grow. Again, I'm not certain of how long into the process. It's a moon or something like that, a couple of weeks, that the heart is beating within itself, and then it changes to pump blood externally, where the body can then begin to grow. So when you go on that fact, then you will see that, well, the arms basically grew from the heart. If the heart didn't grow first, then the arms wouldn't grow. So it makes sense that the arms grew from the heart. So you would find in the arms, you would find traces of the heart. But in the heart, you would not find traces of the arms. Now this is science that we're talking about, and any scientist can confirm these things. Every scientist actually has access to this information about our grandmother moon. But the scientists get emotional. And when they get emotional is because they cannot prove their theories. Their theories only go so far. Their theories cannot be substantiated by the natural laws of creation. Because, take for instance, the way that non-native science discovered or confirms the existence of an atom is they basically had to split the atom in half. This is the equivalent of, think of this. Well, there's a bunny rabbit hopping around in your backyard, and you tell your guests, that's a bunny rabbit, and they don't believe you. They say, no, it's not a bunny rabbit. But to confirm what it is, they got to catch that bunny rabbit, cut it in half, and then they'll say, oh yeah, okay, that is a bunny rabbit. You're right, because there's little bunny rabbit arms, bunny rabbit lungs, bunny rabbit heart in there. Anyways, so the fact is of the male dominant science is it's going in a reverse direction. It is reverse technology. It is looking at the tree, of how the tree grows, and it reverses the knowledge of creation. So what non-native male dominant science does, the only thing it can do is be a deconstructive, it's a deconstructive technology. It's a knowledge of how to tear it apart. So, this is part of the knowledge that the people have forgotten, is that the heart, our grandmother moon, is one, has only one element in it. Doesn't have Jupiter, doesn't have Saturn, doesn't have anything else. So when we know this and we put these things together with a matrilineal base foundation of natural science, then we will see the truth of what is happening, of how we are in a larger body. We are in the larger body of Sky Woman. And so right now, what we'll do is we're going to end off with this beautiful evening that we have right now, and I'm sure that you have where you are, that we are each of us celebrating our grandmother moon, that our friends around the world are watching some right now on Facebook Live, and that they are celebrating our grandmother moon. So we're going to end off with this. We're going to do a small moon ceremony as to how we give thanks to our grandmother moon. I won't take the time to say anything in my language. I'm just going to say it in English, you know, not to take away the importance, but for time. So the first thing that we begin is we begin by saying, my name is Gazit Donzario. I am the son of Gahawinuche and of Juranyate. And that when my mother was alive in this world, that she carried the sacred title of Wolf Clan Mother to the people in the Longhouse. And that I acknowledge and I give my thanks to the great body of Sky Woman, she who gives us spirit. And then I give my thanks to our grandmother Moon, the beating heart of our Mother Earth, she who gives us blood. And then we give our thanks to our Mother Earth, she who is the mother of us all, regardless of what form we take, if we are any creature, any animal, human, if we are bird, if we are fish, our Mother Earth is the mother of us all, and so it is she who gives us body. And then we give thanks to all the women, from the newest born baby girl to the eldest grandmother, as they are all the mothers of our nations, as they carry the sacred title into this world of life giver, they who bring life into the world. And so it is they we give thanks to for giving us males in this world, giving us direction, showing us how to walk in this world in balance and to realize and to understand that we are within our mother's world. And so tonight we give thanks to our grandmother Moon for the work that she continues to do within the larger body of creation, that she reminds us of that creation, the bigness of it does not stop with us, that we are not the end all to creation, that we are a level of consciousness, but that this level of consciousness are constantly expanding. So we give thanks and we ask our ancestors who carried the good mind to help us to bring back the true power of our mothers, to bring our mother back into her natural seat of authority, where she can manage our peoples once again and bring balance and harmony and peace back to the people and to all the lands. And we ask our grandmother to continue to work with the ancient turtle, and the ancient turtle to continue to shake its back, to remove all the unnatural creations that have been placed upon our Mother Earth to destroy her. That we ask that the natural powers work together to restore the health of our Mother Earth. We ask that we ourselves, that if we are a hindrance to the process, that then to show us, give us the knowledge of what we must do to correct ourselves. But if we persist and we are the hindrance, then to remove us also from hindering our mother's health. And so we give thanks to our grandmother Moon that she continues this job. Tony Owanagi.
My name is Edith, and I'm very grateful for what we have been doing today. Our grandmother Moon came out a while ago in a very beautiful way. She was just lying down in the sky, and we are very grateful that this dialogue between the nations is being opened. We're very grateful for all of the work that you guys have been doing, for everything that you have researched, and for this very opening and understanding of what we have been trying to portray with the speaker, our representative, Stuart Myiow. And we are very looking forward for this dialogue to continue, because it is very important that all of the nations remember who they are, where they come from, and we all come from that grandmother that is always protecting us and taking care of us. And very grateful for all of the granddaughters too that can reconnect back with that essence of what we are, life givers. And for all of the male too that can reconnect with the essence of being life protectors, and that balance can be brought back to the creation of our Mother Earth. So, Myiow,
Yeah, so to everybody, all our sisters and brothers in Hawaii, in our language we say Nyawagoa. That's thank you very much. How do we say that?
Mahalo kia kua.
Mahola kia kula.
Mahalo. Aloha, beautiful Mama Kauai.
Thank you very much. How do we say that?
Mahalo kia kua.
Mahalo, everybody for your manao.
Okay, so say goodnight to everybody there also.
Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.
Yeah.